So today we're going to talk about cities in Canada and their population growth. I seen this chart. 8 of the top 10 cities in North America for population growth were Canadian cities. We're going to break down a few of the cities I would like to invest in or other things that I would look at aside from just population growth. If you look at a city like Toronto that has 3.5 million people, it was number one on the list at 125,000 population growth. How much does that affect the housing market versus a city like Calgary that maybe has 1,000,003 people and has 85,000 of population growth, right? That's going to affect a lot more. Rents are going to go up a lot quicker because that's a huge percent of the population. Edmonton's very similar. Even Winnipeg with 30,000, that's going to have a pretty big impact on the market. Toronto's very big. I don't know if it'll have some impact, but 125,000 on the size of city probably won't affect the housing market a whole lot or rental rates. We've seen it here in Edmonton where just the 50,000 of population growth, and we had population growth last year as well. Vacancy rate dropped from like 7% a few years ago, and it's under 2% now. We're seeing rents go up at rates that we just never thought we'd see. So that's all positive. But the things I would look at, I guess, are where are those people coming from? So Alberta is in a good spot where it's a lot of in-migration from other provinces in Canada. It's working people, younger people, and they're moving here because of the cost of living. Quebec as a whole, almost all the population growth came from immigration from other countries, a ton of asylum seekers. You have to ask yourself, what benefit is that to society? Is that a huge net benefit besides in the housing market? Are all the people working? Are they, using social services? So you want to make sure you know where the population growth is coming from. Again, I'm always bullish on Alberta, but we have, the youngest population of immigration coming here. Most of them are coming from other parts of the country because we have really high paying jobs and a lower cost of living. Now that cost of living is obviously going up as more and more people come here. So that's a negative for all the people that live here that want to get into a nicer house. Now they have to pay more money to get into it. The other thing to think about is the unemployment rate. We've definitely seen that tick up in Alberta as our population grew. So is there enough jobs for all these people? Because if a bunch of people move and there's no jobs for them and they're on unemployment, that's not a net benefit for society. It's going to use, it costs a lot of money to support those people. So you have to look at a whole bunch of different things, not just population growth. If you look at the top 10 cities in North America that have lost population, they're all in the states. You can look kind of politically where those states are. They're very high tax states. Almost every one of those states has a very high income tax. So you have to look at policies, what's making people want to move somewhere and what's driving people out of them. The other thing to look at is if a city is just driven by, let's say, international immigration, what happens when there's a change of government and policy changes, right? If you look at when Trudeau first got in, I think we had about 10 to 15,000 people a year seeking asylum in Canada. And in 2023, there was 145,000 people. So that drastically changed, right? If we get a change of government, that can change back. So if we don't have as much immigration, what does that do to a city, right? If there's not natural growth, if people aren't moving there for jobs or for cheaper cost of living or things like that, if they're just coming because they're coming to the country, when that stops, how does that affect the housing market, right? Have we been building enough houses expecting the same amount of immigration every year? Because that's when you can have a crash, is if we oversupply. I don't think we're anywhere even near that in Canada. We're way undersupplied, so I think we can absorb a lot of that. But it's just different things to look at, not just the number of population growth. If you want to look at immigration rates and unemployment rates, those charts are going in almost the exact opposite direction, right? Immigration numbers are going way up. Unemployment rates or employment rates are dropping. So in kind of that key area, 15 to 24-year-olds, it was close to 60% in 2022, and it's dropped all the way down to 53% now. So that's a big drop as immigration has came up. So I think the government needs to do a better job of make sure we have housing for everyone that's coming in. Homelessness is a huge problem now in every city, and make sure that we have jobs for these people. If they're going to come into the country, if we're going to bring in a bunch of people, we want to make sure they're working, we have jobs, other people aren't losing jobs as a negative. It's also good to understand, if the people are working, what kind of jobs they are those jobs going to be around. I think the May job numbers in Canada, they created 398,000 jobs, but 208,000 of those were public sector jobs. Those were government jobs. that's not something that's really driving the economy. It's, essentially taxpayers paying people to work. It's not really doing a lot for the economy. I believe in the last 12 months, the country has lost around 60,000 manufacturing jobs, things that build stuff. And in Alberta, we've gained 40,000 jobs during that same time period in that industry. So there's places where there's good jobs, there's things happening. Those are all what I would look at a lot more than just population growth. So as a real estate investor, I'm obviously biased towards Alberta. I would still pick Calgary and Edmonton, landlord friendly, lots of good jobs, and we have the population growth. As a percent, they're some of the highest cities in Canada by far. And there's cities that I wouldn't go to. I mean, Montreal, Winnipeg, there's places that have really strict guidelines on the landlord tenancy side. For me, it's still very tough to look at investing in Toronto or Vancouver just because the price is so high.